Now, an American pilot is breathing purely because the CIA successfully tricked the world, including their own allies. And that's only the third most insane thing that happened this weekend. Israel just destroyed 85% of Iran's entire petrochemical export capacity in a single night. Not a warning shot, not a symbolic strike. They wiped out the infrastructure Iran uses to fund every proxy war it runs across the Middle East. While that was happening, a U.S. F-15 got shot down over Iranian territory, triggering a 36-hour secret rescue operation that the CIA pulled off using deliberately planted false intelligence. And here's the one that'll really break your brain. Russia, Iran's closest partner, handed Israel a 53-target hit list. Oh, and Trump's deadline for Iran expires Tuesday night. Here's what's happening right now. For analysis, all connected. Here's your 60-second download. First analysis. Israeli F-35 stealth jets hit Iran's biggest energy facilities over the weekend. Refineries are burning, and Iran's petrochemical industry is essentially offline. Second analysis, an American F-15 was shot down over Iran, and the CIA ran a secret 36-hour deception operation to bring that pilot home alive. Third analysis, Ukrainian President Zelensky just revealed that Russia secretly provided Israel with a 53-target hit list inside Iran. Yes, Russia, Iran's supposed ally. And story 4, President Trump has issued a hard deadline to Iran, and it expires Tuesday night. The consequences of Iran ignoring it are enormous. These 4 stories aren't random events. They're one coordinated chess match. But first, you need to understand this. Look at the map. Iran is surrounded, Israel to the west, U.S. military bases in Kuwait and Qatar to the south, Russia to the north, Europe watching from across the Mediterranean. Every single player in this story sits on Iran's doorstep. Now, here's what makes this week different. All 4 of these events happened inside a 48-hour window, April 4th through April 5th. That's not a coincidence. That's a coordinated pressure campaign with a hard expiration date. Let's start with what Israel just did. On April 4th and 5th, Israel launched one of the most strategically targeted strikes in recent Middle East history. They sent in F-35I Adder stealth fighters. These are jets specifically designed to slip through advanced air defense systems like Iran's S-300 and S-400 batteries without triggering a single alarm. The targets were precise and deliberate. Refineries 4 and 7 at Mashhad in southwestern Iran and the South Pars gas field offshore at Asaluye. South Pars isn't just any gas field, it's the largest natural gas field on the entire planet. That's Iran's financial spine. The weapons used were SPICE-200 bunker-busting bombs and Blue Sparrow long-range missiles. Satellite imagery now confirms that Refinery 4 is almost completely destroyed. The number that matters most, 85% of Iran's petrochemical export capacity is offline. That's the revenue stream Tehran uses to fund Hezbollah, the Houthis, and its entire missile program. Gone. But here's what you don't know. Who gave them the intelligence for this strike? The answer will shock you. Ukrainian President Zelensky just dropped a bombshell. Russia provided Israel with a 53-site target list inside Iran, specific locations of military infrastructure, energy nodes, and Iranian Revolutionary Guard facilities. Let that sink in for a second. Russia and Iran are supposed to be partners. They've shared weapons technology, coordinated military operations together in Syria, and propped each other up economically under Western sanctions for years. So why would Moscow do this? The answer is cold, calculated, and has nothing to do with loyalty. Russia wants the United States to burn through its Patriot and PAC, 3 missile interceptor stockpiles defending American bases in the Gulf. Here's what that means practically. Every interceptor the U.S. fires in the Middle East is one less interceptor protecting Ukraine from Russian glide bombs. Russia isn't helping Israel because it likes Israel. Russia is using this war to drain the exact air defense systems keeping Kyiv alive. The Kremlin has said absolutely nothing in response. And that silence is its own kind of confirmation. And while this was happening, Europe made a move that nobody's talking about. This gets even more complex. While Israeli jets were hitting South Pars, something quietly unusual happened in the Strait of Hormuz. A French commercial vessel, the CMA CGM Kribi, sailed straight through. No incident, no Iranian interference. Here's why that matters. Iran has effectively closed the strait to most international shipping. It's one of the most important waterways on the planet. Roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through it. So when a French ship glides through without a scratch, that's not luck. Analysts are reading this as a shadow deal, a quiet, unofficial arrangement between Paris and Tehran to keep European energy flowing while everyone else gets blocked. Think about what that means. Washington says the strait is closed. Paris apparently got an exemption. That's not an alliance, that's a crack in one. If Europe is cutting private deals with Iran to protect its own energy supply, the united Western front against Tehran starts falling apart from the inside. The EU has released 0 official statements about the Creevy transit. 0. And that silence is very loud. Meanwhile, Trump set a deadline that's about to expire, and the clock is ticking. President Trump has issued a hard deadline Tuesday night, April 7th. Iran comes to the negotiating table or it faces the next wave. The strategy behind all of this actually has a name: economic decapitation. The idea is simple and brutal. You destroy a country's ability to fund a war, and eventually they can't afford to keep fighting one. The strikes on Nashar and South Pars already wiped out 70% of Iran's steel production and 85% of its petrochemical exports. Trump is also playing to his domestic base here. His take the oil framing echoes promises he's been making since 2016. The message to American voters is that this conflict pays for itself through seized Iranian assets. But if Tuesday passes with no response from Tehran, the reported next targets are Karg Island, Iran's primary oil export terminal, and potentially the Bushehr nuclear power plant. As of right now, Iran has made 0 public concessions. This deadline isn't just about Iran. It's connected to everything: the Israeli strikes, Russia's betrayal, Europe's shadow deal. It all hinges on Tuesday night. Now let me show you how all of this connects. Here's the full picture. Israel's strike wasn't spontaneous. It was timed to maximize pressure right before Trump's Tuesday deadline. Didn't betray Iran out of loyalty to Israel. It did it to drain American air defense stockpiles needed in Ukraine. Europe's shadow deal shows the Western coalition is already cracking under energy pressure. So who's winning? The U.S.-Israel axis for now. Who's losing? Iran's economy and possibly the Russia-Iran partnership that everyone assumed was unbreakable. This is developing by the hour. Quick pause before we get into the analysis. This situation is still developing. Tuesday's deadline hasn't hit yet, and the next 24 to 48 hours could change everything we just covered. Dropping an update video the moment that deadline expires, breaking down exactly what Iran did or didn't do and what comes next. Hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss it. We do this every week. Geopolitics, no spin, no fluff, just what actually matters. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen this kind of pressure campaign. This playbook isn't new. In 1981, Israel destroyed Iraq's Osirak nuclear reactor in a surprise airstrike. The entire world condemned it: the US, the UN, everyone. Within a decade, every serious analyst quietly admitted Israel was right. Sound familiar? Then in 2007, Israel destroyed a covert nuclear site inside Syria. Here's the fascinating part. Syria never officially acknowledged it happened, because admitting the strike meant admitting they were secretly building a nuclear weapon. Iran is stuck in that exact same PR trap right now. And the economic pressure angle has a track record too. In 2012 and again in 2015, the U.S. hit Iran with crippling sanctions, not bombs, but financial warfare. It worked. Tehran came to the table and signed the original nuclear deal. This time, the pressure is coming from strikes instead of sanctions, but the logic is identical. The one thing that's genuinely different now: Russia isn't sitting on the sidelines, it's an active participant. And that changes the escalation math in ways none of these historical examples prepared us for. So based on history and what's happening right now, here's what could come next. Has 3 realistic moves. Option 1, direct military retaliation, swarm drone and missile attacks on U.S. bases in Kuwait and Qatar. Option 2, proxy escalation activating Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in the Red Sea, and Iraqi militias all at once. Option 3, negotiate quietly while saving face publicly. Based on everything Iran has done historically, expect a combination of proxy pressure and back-channel talks. Iran rarely escalates without keeping an exit ramp open. But Iran has to factor in what Russia just did. This is almost certainly a tactical move, not a permanent break. Russia still needs Iranian drones for Ukraine. Iran still needs Russian diplomatic cover at the UN Security Council. But trust, that's damaged, possibly for years. Iran now knows Moscow will sell it out the moment it's convenient. Most likely outcome, a very public reaffirmation of the alliance, combined with very private Iranian fury. Meanwhile, Trump's deadline: 3 scenarios for Tuesday night. Scenario A, Iran complies, negotiations open, Karg Island and Bushehr are spared. Trump claims a major win. Scenario B, Iran ignores the deadline, strikes on Karg begin Wednesday. Oil markets go into free fall and the Strait of Hormuz becomes an active war zone. Scenario C, Iran signals willingness to talk without formally agreeing, buying both sides a face-saving delay. That's the most likely outcome, with scenario B as the threat keeping everyone honest. And Europe is positioning itself as the back channel nobody officially acknowledges. If Iran needs a face-saving exit from Tuesday's deadline, a European intermediary is the most plausible off-ramp. Watch Paris and Brussels closely over the next 48 to 72 hours. If they start making noise, a quiet deal is already being brokered. Here's the bottom line. Here's where we stand. Israel dismantled Iran's economic engine. A U.S. pilot is home safe. Russia played both sides. And Tuesday night, we find out if this becomes a full-scale war or the opening move of a deal. Things to watch. Does Iran retaliate militarily before the deadline? Does Europe's back channel actually work? And does Trump pull the trigger on Card Island? My prediction, Iran signals partial compliance, but proxy attacks in the Gulf continue as a pressure valve. What do you think Iran does when that clock hits zero? Negotiate, retaliate, or stall? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. The Middle East just changed. The only question is whether Tuesday night changes it again or changes everything.